live, live, live. I tell you, live. I've had a lot of caffeine.
Sorry, she pressed live, go live, like right as I took a bite of my dinner.
Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi, we're
Hello,
back.
everyone.
So,
Sorry, our Insta just typed into the chat Cinnabar Toast Crunch.
I'm not quite sure that's the right topping.
This is why you do not lick the science.
don't like the science.
Do not.
But you feed the scientists.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what we're here for.
Yes.
My lovely, lovely wife made me a turkey burger and roasted squash fries.
I'm going to run real fast. I will be right back. Sorry.
What's that? What? We could just have an entire panel of Pamela making faces. No, she'll do this, everyone. She will say that she's leaving, and then she just sits there on mute and makes faces. And she can't hear me right now, so
because she took her ears out.
Yeah.
This will be a 1 hour panel on next year's Hangout-a-thon. She won't know.
Just go ahead and plan like a surprise party for her. She has no idea.
So why are we here, Ellie?
We are here to we are gathered here today. Anyway, I've hit that point where I I've hit that point where I'm like very weird. I'm sorry. So this panel is sci-fi literature syllabus. We are going to build a syllabus for an imaginary sci-fi class that we would like to take. It's like if you could assign sci-fi, what books would you pick and why? And I figure we can just go around and each share like one book we would want to put on our like ideal sci-fi literature syllabus.
I suppose it's true that we would want our syllabus to reflect a single semester's worth of college, perhaps, as opposed to an entire doctoral whatever.
Because let's be real, you could do an entire degree on this, right?
Several, probably, depending on what you wanted to do. But yeah.
So we're okay. So parameters for this: a syllabus for a 1 semester sci-fi literature survey course.
Nice.
So like you're wanting to give people a taste of everything. And this can be, it can be novels, it can be short stories. Excerpts from novels, like you can get creative with it. It doesn't just have to be novels.
And for some of it though, it becomes a little bit tricky because you get books that spawn movies and radio series that spawn books and TV series, and it gets all fuzzy at some point.
And that's cool. And we're just going to like focus on books. Although I did take a cyborg sci-fi class in college. It was just focusing on cyborg science fiction, and we did like a combination of like literature and movies and TV shows. We got, it's fun getting to sit in a class and watch Terminator. We also watched Metropolis and stuff like that. But I remember we read a lot of James Tiptree Jr., who I love and probably talk about on here. So anyway, let's start with Gordon. Which one call you out?
Sure. Well, if you watched the previous one, you'll probably won't be surprised that I would hold up these 3 books as a bare minimum, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. It's a series that it's a story that has appeared in many different forms: radio series, an audio, like a set of records that the BBC put out, set of books, TV show. There's the script version. The story is similar but not identical in every different one. But if you've ever heard people, exclaim, oh, don't panic, or, the answer is to life, the universe, and everything is 42. This is where it comes from. Adams was an incredibly influential author who was active. He's most well known probably for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but he did some other series as well. And he wrote for Doctor Who, and he wrote for some other things. But this is what he's known for. So that's who I would say has to be on there, because he is just, things from the series has permeated popular culture today. And people don't even know why they're saying, oh, the answer is 42. It's like, well, which was, the question was flawed. So, so that's my, if we're only putting one forward, that's who I would put forward. If we can put more, then we'll do another round and I'll tell you my next one.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we'll get there.
So who wants to go next?
I can go next. One of the things that I think, and I mentioned this a couple of panels ago in the chat, one of the things that's fascinating to me is how science fiction, we've mentioned before that it's always been progressive. It's always forward looking. It's always looking at what could be, what should be, what should not be, as humanity goes forward into the future, sometimes technologically and sometimes not. But one of the things that goes right alongside that is that it also tends to show up some of the aspects of the culture of the time. And so you get something like E.E. Doc Smith's Lensman Chronicles, which are written back in the 30s and 40s, almost in a serial fashion. And you get the daring space people and the friendly aliens, and then the ugly aliens, and then the somewhat stereotypical, who would say, trying to be nice, portrayal of females as being somehow fundamentally different from males, but yet still, given the time frame and the society, you can look and see that they're trying to push beyond that. They're trying to say, no, she's not just pretty, which is what everybody in their supposedly straight male audience wants to read. But at the same time, this is somebody who is confident and capable and can stand up for herself and does all these things as well. She can cook and do calculus, kind of thing. And it's interesting seeing that snapshot of somebody who is trying to be forward thinking in a different time frame from the one that you're familiar with. We see this sometimes in H.G. Wells' work. We certainly see it in Heinlein's work. But if we're going to pick one, I'm going to go with the Lensman's Chronicles by Doc Smith.
And who wants to go next?
Okay. Gordon beat me to Douglas Adams, which I would have picked, of course, too. And
Very sorry.
Not exactly because Douglas Adams is just influential, because it exists in so many different versions. It really started as the radio series, and then Douglas Adams basically got harangued into making it into a novel.
Yep.
And the radio series also exists as I think the first two series exist also as a vinyl record, which is a different recording than the radio show.
Yep.
And later, after Douglas Adams had passed away, but he was still involved in this a little bit, the rest of the novels were also made into a radio series, very well with the same actors as they had in the 1980s. And that was in the, I think, end of 1990s, beginning of 2000s. And there was also a sequel called And Another Thing by Owen Colford, which got kind of panned by critics, but I still like it. So the whole omnibus in its different incarnations, the TV series is great too. Even with a smaller budget, they had on the BBC special effects look like Doctor Who at the time. And the movie from I think 2005 was also quite good, but also
It was
completely different. Yeah, completely different version of the story. And sadly, they never made a sequel of the movie. But what I actually wanted to suggest as an alternative is a novel called Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, which is the first Red Dwarf series made into a novel by Grant Naylor. I think they're both called the authors together, and I think there are even 3 or 4 novels as a trilogy or quadrilogy. I don't remember which one. The first one is especially great because it really elaborates on the prehistory of the series before Lister gets sent into the future, 3 million into the future, and is just there with the hologram Rimmer and the poor computer and the cat, of course. And I think the novel is really nicely readable. I think there's a audiobook read
so much
by
fun.
audiobook read by what's his name? The actor who played Rimmer, who is actually really good with voices and stuff. He does all the voices. He does Crichton's voices. He does Lister's voices. And this would be really a great addition. And it's not widely known. I don't know if you can buy it as a book at the moment. Maybe it's out of print. But this would be a good addition to the series, to the TV series itself.
Yeah, I think that was Chris Barry who was the actor who played Rimmer.
Chris Barry and Craig Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it basically. Yeah.
I'll recommend something now. I wanted to hear what other people were recommending, and then out of the many options that I have possibilities for, choose something that is different. I'm going to choose Samuel R. Delaney's Babel 17, because Samuel Delaney is not straight, and the main character is not a man. Babel 17 is a standalone novel also, and it's one of those that has had a huge influence as Samuel Delaney has had. I remember having to read one of his books in high school as part of preparation for a competition that we were going to, that had a literary component to it. But his novels often take characters that are not who would normally be put in to the lead position, because he himself was a social outsider at the time that he was writing. The novel also focuses on the linguistic aspects of First Contact. Some of the ideas are a little bit speculative, but they are mind-broadening if you're not experienced in sci-fi or in linguistics. He does a lot of cool stuff when he's writing.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds ideal for something like this. You're looking to identify work that get people familiar with what good sci-fi does, and that is to broaden the mind, get you thinking about those details, get you thinking about how humans deal with these concepts. And as we often say, good sci-fi isn't so much about the tech, it's how humans are reacting to the tech. How are they reacting to the society that they're in?
I'm just reading the Wikipedia entry for the book, and I've never heard of it. It's really fascinating.
When
And
I was just skimming, and when I read a quick summary, I actually asked ChatGPT to give me a quick high level summary of it. And I'm thinking it
Speaking of
reminded
sci-fi.
me, well, so it can give me a summary, that's fine.
It can burn down a forest to give you a summary.
Sure, sure.
Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
that's fine. I'm done with winter, so I'm good with that.
Okay. Yep. Sorry.
And it perpetuates what I have to measure at work in my day job.
Ellie hates ChatGPT.
I understand. So I asked a knowledgeable thing on the internet and it gave me a summary. But it naggingly reminded me of a movie that I couldn't remember the name of, but it came up this morning and I've put all the pieces together. It was the one with the language that were these smoky symbols. And that's Arrival.
Yeah. However, the Babel 17 novel was published in 1966.
Sure. Yeah, and I asked, well, is it connected? And it's like, not directly, but it might have been. It's often mentioned in the same breath as, or the same context as Arrival. So maybe it influenced the writer. I've seen things written, a generation ago that's like, and seen things written now that remind me of something written a generation ago, and it's like, yeah. So there is inspiration there.
Yeah, it's like the first novel I'm aware of that explores the idea and ramifications of artificial intelligence is from the middle of the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. None of us have mentioned Isaac Asimov.
I love Asimov. I find that Asimov is very ubiquitous when discussing sci-fi, and so I don't generally recommend his books because and this is going to get me into trouble. I think that a lot of Asimov's peers were much more interesting with their ideas.
Sure.
So but I get it that Foundation, very influential. Asimov's kind of one of the old school sci-fi writers, and I have read iRobot for a class, and I think that if I was going to put an Isaac Asimov book on a sci-fi lit syllabus, that would be the one, because and also even you don't even have to read the whole thing for a class.
No.
You can select chapters of it, right? Because it's basically it's a collection of connected short stories.
Yes.
That's actually what we did do in school. We read, I can't remember if it was one or two of the short stories from that.
And I mean, there are people doing, robotic ethics now,
Mm-hmm.
and they're citing his 3 laws as being pretty much the perfect codification of what you would like your robot overlords to be, how you'd like them to behave.
Or specifying why those 3 laws might not be ideal and actually kind of thing. But it's the starting point for the discussion. It reminds me in a lot of ways of the Drake equation, except so much more succinct and to the point. The Drake equation for me is presented as a mathematical problem, but is actually a philosophical one. Because you don't know what the variables actually are. We haven't got any good handle on most of them. And so it's writing down in mathematical terms a philosophical question. Whereas in this case, you've got somebody who took some time to think about this and came up with a set that logically goes together really well and makes for some good storytelling.
And it was interesting that as one of Asimov's core characters, his main characters who came up again and again, was actually a woman. And this was written back in the 50s or 60s. I don't remember when, but back then that was Susan Calvin. And I thought that was very interesting
And also,
daring
like,
for what he did back then. Yeah.
no, she's such a fascinating character, right? And like, it's very at odds with Asimov's personal interactions with women. That's another reason why I'm a little like on Asimov, but that's a rant for another day. Um, but yeah, iRobot it's really good, and I think it's his most like approachable book.
Yes.
I think that even if you're not really into sci-fi lit, like that one is just really
Most
accessible and
approachable
interesting.
sci-fi book. He wrote a lot of science books too, and I would
He
actually
did.
recommend his History of the Discovery of the Periodic Table if you're reading science books.
Mm.
And
And his autobiography is interesting as well because it's also a basically a history of early science fiction because he talks a lot about his peers and doesn't put himself really into the he doesn't think of himself as really an important writer. He thinks his colleagues, his peers, are more important than him sometimes.
one of the reasons I jumped in while I was still eating my fries, which I decided don't need to be eaten in their entirety, was going from the laws of robotics. We can turn to Mur Lafferty's Six Wakes, which puts together the laws of cloning. When we reach the point, if we reach the point of being able to transfer our programming, that thing that gives us our personality, our intellect, our history, our memories, from one body to another, what are the rules that we need to have? Because that essentially makes us immortals. And
Mhm.
her book looks at things like, what can you do? Well, you shouldn't be reproducing from a clone. I'm going to pull this up, but we have the potential through science fiction to address concerns that are someday going to need to have the morality discussions like robotics
Mhm.
and cloning. And science fiction gives us the chance to experiment with what happens when you don't have these rules.
Mhm. And that makes me, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna bring back the Expanse. I'm sorry, I hammer on about this a lot. Um, that like what you see in the Expanse is like a very possible future for us with regards to what's being currently planned for like establishing bases on the moon and mining asteroids and answering the question of who is going to be mining the asteroids and what is going to happen to them? How are they going to be treated by the wealthy people they're working for? And I think that's what fascinates me about The Expanse so much is it's like, at least in my sci-fi reading, it's interesting how it addresses the issue of class.
Yeah.
Um, and so like it does kind of force you to take a good hard look at like the ethics of where we're headed and like how we're going to, yes, Broken Symmetry. Sorry, I have chat up, and Broken Symmetry's like, Allie has an expansive opinion. Yes, I do. All my opinions are very expansive, as Pamela will tell you. Um, but yeah, it's just, continuing with that tradition of science fiction, like addressing future ethical concerns, right?
Yep.
So would Mur Lafferty's book be a recommendation, Pamela?
Yes, and I have the 3 rules of cloning up now. It's illegal to create more than one clone of a person at a time. Each clone is a person in their own right. Cloning is only to be used to extend light, not for reproduction. And there's lots of interesting things that go into this. The problem of what happens if you do allow multiples, what happens, yeah, it just goes into all these consequences. And again, it also takes on the class issues because not everyone is going to be able to afford to clone themselves. Not
Mhm.
everyone is going to be able to afford to live on Earth. And all these different things have to be considered. and her book is
Upload
a good
kind of.
starting point.
Have you seen the series Upload?
I don't think so.
Ooh, yeah.
It so it's talking about you are recently dead and you can have your consciousness uploaded into a virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely a class in there. If you were wealthy or you have a wealthy patron, then yeah, you're going to live, the golden life in in this virtual reality. But if not, then yeah, you're going to be getting minimum bandwidth, minimum resolution, not a lot of memory space. So your existence in this virtual reality is going to be quite different. I don't remember which streaming service it's on. If it's
on Amazon.
Netflix, is it
It's
Amazon Prime?
Amazon Prime, at least in Europe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Prime. It's
Yep.
definitely worth watching, Pamela.
I have to check that out. It sounds like it deals with similar themes to, I don't know if anyone has read or watched the series Altered Carbon,
Yes.
I've seen a bit of it.
which if we want to get into like cyberpunk stuff,
I'm familiar with the novel passingly, but not with the TV series.
I've only seen the TV show. It's very interesting. I love cyberpunk fiction. So like it just kind of scratches that itch for me, even though it does have a lot of the problems inherent in the cyber fiction genre. But it deals with like this whole conceit of people's like their consciousness is stored in these like kind of discs that are in their spine. And so people can be uploaded into what they call like sleeps, which are bodies.
Right.
And it does deal with the class issues around like rich people are able to clone themselves so that they have multiple sleeves and can just basically be like functionally immortal that way. It takes it out to like some very absurd conclusions. Like you have like there's a whole sport around like people fighting to the death because they don't actually die. They can just be uploaded into a new body. And
Right.
so you have these like this like reemergence of like really disgusting blood sports because of that. And it's just it's neat, it's interesting. I've only seen the first season of the show. It's just if you want something like very, very weird, like check out the books
The
or the
book is
TV show.
excellent. And there's also a
Yeah,
graphic novel.
it is sitting on my e-reader. Also, I would like to just point out something from chat really quick. Someone said, hopefully audiobooks are not taboo.
No.
Audiobooks are absolutely not taboo here. We
I
love
listen to them
audiobooks.
all the time.
And audiobooks are
Me too.
reading.
Yeah.
And if someone is telling you different, they shouldn't be.
But I would say I do recommend that if you're going to do an audiobook and you have the option, listen to a sample before purchasing,
Yeah.
because there is a wide diversity in quality of audiobook readers.
Yeah.
And if you like
Yeah, but-
stories read out loud, on my personal Twitch channel, I do story time most Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern, working our way through Yevgeny Zamyatin's We at the moment, and we'll be finishing it next week and then picking a new book to start after Halloween.
Awesome. Yeah. I love your reading streams. Reading streams. I said that right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Gordon suggested to me in chat, I'm just gonna call you out. What about William Gibson? Neuromancer.
Ooh, I wanna comment on whatever he comments.
Okay.
William Gibson. So, I mean, he's the godfather of cyberpunk. I think he was the one who invented the term. He's written some really fundamental stories, and I sort of think of what he's written and some of Neil Stephenson's shorter stories, not his 600 page volumes, 3-volume series. I love Neil Stevenson, but this much is a bit much to
His
absorb
books
all
are
at
door
once.
stoppers.
Mhm.
Not all of them. He's got
Yeah.
short ones and they're great.
And the audiobooks are terribly long.
I haven't listened to I don't tend to listen to audiobooks. I like to
It's like
read, or I'll read them on my
24,
e-reader.
26 hours or something
Oh,
sometimes.
wow.
Which, if
Okay.
you need to completely redo your yard, his books have allowed me to do housework that would otherwise never be done because they are completely captivating. The Read Me series, which is on my
was gonna
must-read
say-
Leary. Yeah. So the Audible book,
Yeah.
I'll let him talk about it. I'm shutting up and going back to looking things up.
Well, no, I was going to say Stevenson's Reamda. It's a play on README, the README file that you find in programs. So that is fascinating. And there was another one that he did just after that, and it is based in virtual reality. And I'm forgetting which one it is. He's a very prolific author, so both of those are worth reading. Gibson, if you want to see where the genre sort of started.
Mhm. He was kind of one among many who really like originated that
Yes.
genre, but he is definitely like the most well-known example. And Neuromancer is a very, very good novel.
Yes.
So
I know Dave has thoughts.
Yeah, the comment that I was going to make is that the name that doesn't always get tied to this is Werner Vinge, who himself was a computer scientist and also an author. My personal favorite of his is A Fire Upon the Deep, which makes the MacGuffin of there being different zones in the cosmos where the speed of light works slightly differently, and thus certain computational devices are able to do different things. He had a novel, or a novella really, by the name of True Names, which was a fairly early story to flesh out this concept of cyberspace, he said, reading from Wikipedia, because I couldn't come up with a good way of saying it myself. This idea of the internet, the idea of being able to either virtually or electronically access information across some kind of a web, across some kind of a different electronic universe, and pull that information and use it to the point where it kind of becomes a universe on its own, is something that's really fairly well fleshed out by Werner Vinge. And his aliens, the ones that he comes up with in Fire Upon the Deep, Deepness in the Sky, and Children of the Sky, I think is the other one, that are all built around that particular universe.
Mm-hmm.
These the aliens are absolutely imaginative. One of them is just a great big spider, but the thoughts and the language of the spider, oh, okay, and you can kind of see things from their side. There's another where the entity, the individual, isn't actually an individual. They're a foursome or a fivesome or a sixsome that all communicate audibly with each other. They're like evolved sea creatures. There's others that are basically plants on top of what do you call them? He calls them scroters. Basically, just electronic. They can run around on tracks and wheels, and they contain the electronic memory that allows them to have permanent thoughts and persistence of thought that you wouldn't expect from a plant. As well as, the voters that allow them to speak audibly with other beings. Some of the the concepts in his work are really fun and really eye-opening. And the idea of an internet that goes across the galaxy is a lot of fun too, even if that's maybe not possible given what we know of physics. But yeah, I just wanted to bring up Werner Vinge in response to the whole cyberpunk, cyberspace idea, because he was on the early edge of that.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to check his stuff out because I hadn't heard of him before. That's why I like doing these panels. I get to hear about things I haven't read.
I'm going to recommend an anti-syllabus work.
Mm-hmm.
That is, if you're the sort of person who's already familiar with sci-fi and the things that we're listing, saying, well, I've read most of that, so I've got a couple of things to read, but nothing here is really appealing to me because I'm an avid sci-fi reader and I've already read so much. A lesser known work by Jack McDevitt called Moonfall, which was not the inspiration for the horrible movie of that name. Completely different work. It is a sci-fi fan's scavenger hunt, essentially. He wrote a fully fleshed out novel with characters and sci-fi tropes and things, but it's how many little references to sci-fi books and short stories and novels and TV shows and movies can you spot, because they are peppered on every page throughout the entire work. It's, oh, that's a reference to a Jerry Anderson TV series, or, oh, wait, that's a reference to the movie 2001. And it's fun for that reason to read and discuss it with other people.
That does sound like fun. So we've all been talking about really heavy sci-fi, like monumental sci-fi. I also read a lot of, I think of it as like popcorn, because it's nice light sci-fi. It's still got some theme to it, but it's not going to cause you to go off and reflect on everything you've done in your life. And I'm thinking like the Bobiverse books, or there's a series by T.R. Harris, which he tends to self-publish, I think, on Amazon. He's doing quite well at it. And those are both very fun to read. The Bobiverse books tie in with some of the things that Pamela was talking about, sort of with the respect to the cloning, but it's not organic clones. They were electronic or artificial clones, like basically replicants, von Neumann type machines. So those are worth having there. You need to have those, I think, because you'll see some hooks into the other things that we've talked about. So the derivatives, or they're based.
I want to recommend like a fun, more recent series, the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. It's I forget how many books are in the series. There's currently 7 books in the series. Most of them are novellas, so they're really quick read. It's just funny and heartfelt sci-fi about this artificially intelligent robot that calls itself Murderbot. It frees itself from enslavement and decides that it really likes watching trashy TV on the internet.
Excellent.
And it's just the books are like weirdly sweet, but also just kind of biting, and it's just like a very funny look at like cybernetics and sci-fi.
And they're relatively recent.
Yes. These are like the first one, All Systems Red, was published in 2017. And this is something that just like I want to stress because it's very dear to my heart, that there has been so much amazing and interesting sci-fi published in the last 10 years. And it's really, really great to like I love the classics, but there's so much recent stuff that's just it's like you have like people like me who were raised on the classics but are like I want to see myself in this, and So it's just sci-fi in the last 10 years has gotten a lot more queerer, a lot more colorful. And it's just wonderful. And I also feel like I need to plug one of our dear CosmoQuest community friends who I don't know if they will be joining us, but Alex White's books are amazing. The Salvagers trilogy, which is just like really fun, high octane found family space opera. And like, I love space opera.
And these are
Yes.
middle-aged human heroes. And so you get
Yes.
to see the person who's no longer capable of doing all the running and is getting yelled at for the diet and
Yes. No, I love like my favorite character in the Salvager series is Boots. Because Boots is this cranky middle-aged woman who is just a total disaster and like just feral and is trying to like, basically like follow this treasure map across the galaxy. And I love her and I love that like you don't usually get to see like middle-aged female characters kicking ass. And so that one's awesome. Also, Alex's alien novel, The Cold Forge, it's very interesting the way like it plays with gender and like cyborg stuff, and also like is very, very like bitingly anti-corporate in the grand tradition of the Alien series.
Sounds a bit like what Virginia Woolf would be writing if she were writing sci-fi today.
I can tell you that would probably make Alex so happy to hear.
Wayland Yutani is viewed by Virginia Woolf. Yeah.
I'm currently halfway through Orlando, which is borderline sci-fi.
I love Orlando. Orlando is one of my favorite books. I love Virginia Woolf, but I won't go off on that tangent. Orlando is really good, and the things it does with gender are so ahead of its time.
Borderline sci-fi because it's not a spoiler to say that main character starts life as a man and by halfway through the book is a woman.
Mhm. And it was Virginia Woolf wrote that book for her female lover. It's like it's quite literally a love letter to another woman.
that's amazing.
And it's ostensibly it's a biography, and there are photos illustrated in the edition that are taken of her lover.
Yes.
All right. I hate to break this up, but I realized I'm painting in the next session.
Yes,
and
and you
our
need to get set
instro
up.
is sitting where I need to set up cameras, which means I
Yep.
have to end this session vaguely on time. Allie, you're joining me for that, so I have company?
Yes, yes. So you
Aren't
can
you?
talk at me.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna ask you for parting words while I set up to throw
Okay.
to interstitials.
Thank you for joining us. While we like ramble on about our favorite sci-fi and sci-fi we like sharing with other people. And I hope y'all found something that resonates with you and that maybe you've never read before and want to check out now. You do read it.
Yep.
And thank you to my wonderful panelists for joining me.
Thank you, Ellie. Thanks, guys.
See everyone in 15 minutes.
Bye bye.